what I'm hesitant to believe is that at any point technology will overrule humanity, because at the end of the day it will always be us humans who determine whether we would like to adopt a certain technology or not.
From my point of view, the fear of an AI dominating us human beings is unfounded for the near future. But I'm sure that we will see significant improvements for specific tasks, such as autonomous driving, for example.
Ethics should not just be about pointing to critical issues or kicking off important discussions, but also about providing actual solutions. And to do that, we need to understand the technical feasibility of our theoretical or ethical considerations. And therefore, I believe that when ethics and technical experts work together, they are more likely to turn ideas into actual solutions that are truly are able to be executed. But nevertheless, it may be difficult to reconcile all the ethical and technical aspects at the same time, and therefore you sometimes have to make compromises on individual sides.
AI algorithms can be very powerful tools, I would say. So they're able to take on tasks that are so far only performed by humans. And besides a high technical complexity, we have to consider ethical aspects here. For example, the question arises here of the accountability of such algorithms, or how it can be ensured that the decisions made by the algorithms meet our moral standards as a society. And these questions can only be answered by interdisciplinary teams with different background. And this is also where the challenge lies. Think outside your own box of competence and be open for approaches from other disciplines.
So one option may be that with all the solutions that are offered by AI, individuals will perceive long travel time and larger distances more positively, because travel will no longer be simply a means to an end, so getting from one place to another, but the time spent in vehicles can actually be effectively used for other tasks and activities. And therefore, with autonomous vehicles, maybe mobility may not be attached to as many sacrifices or costs anymore.
I think today's average on time spent with mobility is around 1 hour per person per day. And for most people, sitting behind the wheel of a vehicle to get from A to B, maybe also in a traffic jam, is a waste of time, completely waste of time. And in the future, I think AI can help us, one way, to shorten this 1 hour, or more probably increase our mobility radius within that time. And on the other hand, it will also help us to use the time much more efficiently, for example. And so the working day of the future can then no longer just begin in the office, but already on the way there. And that changes the way we think about mobility completely.
So there are plenty of challenging and pressing questions, such as what happens with the data that is generated within autonomous vehicles, or who's responsible or liable in case of an accident. But personally, what I find most interesting is the issue of how to determine certain rules, restrictions, or acceptable trade-offs ex ante, because with fully autonomous vehicles, driving will no longer be about intuitive actions, but actually about objectively right or deliberative choices that are manifested into autonomous vehicles, and therefore kind of manifested implicitly into our society.
The issue of risk distribution is a daily challenge, but it only becomes visible from the outside when actual accidents occur.
Our aim is to turn ethics into code. And what I mean by that is we are developing a cost function that aims to distribute risks fairly in all kinds of traffic scenarios.
Our aim is to develop an algorithm as part of the autonomous driving software that distributes risk fairly and thus lead to ethical decision-making for autonomous vehicles.
So first, we work on practical recommendations for industry and policymakers. For example, together with the AI for People Automotive Committee, we developed ethical guidelines for the automotive sector. So these are kind of intended to serve as a moral compass on how to proceed and what to consider in terms of ethics. And second, we aim to develop a software parts that could be integrated into autonomous vehicles, or at least should be considered or used as a guiding base for further research when developing autonomous vehicles.
With our research, we want to demonstrate an ethical algorithm for the motion planning of autonomous vehicles. So we provide an answer to the question of how an ethical problem, namely the fair distribution of risk, can be addressed by software code. So it's about bridging the gap between high-level demands from ethics and real AI software. And thereby we also want to derive some hands-on practical recommendations from our findings here, especially for IV industries, but also maybe for policymakers.
Is very enjoyable because he's simply a very nice and pleasant person, but also it is very effective because Maximilian has a much more pragmatic mindset than I do, and therefore he keeps on challenging me with so what questions, which is very helpful because it's this way we stay focused on things that are very relevant in practice and applicable.
I really enjoy working with her as he has a very different background than mine. And as you said, there are some challenges in interdisciplinary work, and we can overcome them by being open to each other. And yeah, I think we have a very open work with each other. And I really appreciate the project we work together with her. So it's a pleasure for me to be on the same project with her and to work with her together.